Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. Well, let's get back into the formula. This is book 2 of the Gentleman Bastard series. It is the follow-up to Lies of Locke Lamore, and of course, let's get into the bad so we can end on the good. And unfortunately, the bad in this book is the plot. The villains were, one, not that interesting and not matching up to the villains in the previous book. If you're gonna make a sequel, your villains really need to match the level of intensity and intimidation your previous villains brought. In this book, they barely even seemed intimidating to the characters. I never bought for a second that Locke and Jean were at all in real danger from these people, and that's just because they weren't as intimidating. If Locke and Jean can take on the Bonds Magi, why are these guys a problem? And that just led the plot into being just not as interesting, and there were certain things that happened that just seemed like definite plot armor, and villains did very weird things that were definitely just for plot, convenience and to get things going. And because of that, I have to give Red Seas Under Red Skies a 5 out of 10 for plot. I really didn't like it. It felt very forced at times. At points, it just felt ridiculous. That being said, jumping into the things I did like, let's go with character development. Scott Lynch is almost on the level of like Brandon Sanderson when it's coming to character development. Not only does he maintain the level of chemistry between Locke and Jean, but he builds on it, he builds on the characters, and even though this is the second book, you feel like you're getting to know these characters even better and even more. And it's great. I didn't expect it to be able to be carried so well, and it is. And the level of solitude that these guys feel together, and the level of just them against the world just makes that bond that they have seem so special. And I really love how Scott Lynch handled that. It was fascinating. And when they do start building relationships with their characters, he handles all those relationships very well. The other characters become fleshed out very well and very effectively, almost immediately every time. So every ally that they make is someone you either really hate or you really like, and that's a sign of a good author. So I'm going to give the character development a 9 out of 10, which is a very big difference from the plot. And the last thing, of course, for me is world development. And the world development for this book, it felt pretty much like an extension of the last one. It added a cool new features, like when they're out in the sea, and I won't spoil why they're out in the sea, but they're out in the sea. And the whole culture out there was pretty interesting, but it wasn't anything really revolutionary or crazy new. So I have to give world development only a 7 out of 10. It was good, but it wasn't anything amazing. Now I'm going to talk spoilers for a little bit, so I'm going to put a little thing right here, and when this goes away, I'm no longer talking spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, just mute me until this is gone. So I'm starting spoilers now. The whole thing with Jean threatening Locke at the beginning, and apparently betraying him, and that turning out to be actually a result of nothing, just a miscommunication, was a very weird misdirection by the author that felt like it was completely pointless, and maybe just a cheap way to try to build tension because he knew his book didn't have that much tension. I don't know. But when it finally got resolved, it just kind of left me going like, okay, I knew these guys were never going to betray each other. You didn't need to do that. Yeah, they weren't getting along at the beginning, but the whole thing with Locke trying to rob the vault and then switching to stealing the art, it was a cool misdirect, but they had built up the vault so much. I really wanted to see it, but I never got shown that. And it just kind of felt pointless that this thing had been built up for so long, but it actually wasn't the target at all. And we as a reader just had to it's clever and it's cool, I guess, but it also just kind of felt lazy a little bit. But I really did like the fact that the art turned out to be fake. And that actually kind of brings the fallibility of Locke back down. Locke got really jumped up in this book. He seemed almost superhuman at times, but having his big payoff in the end being taken away from him was kind of actually a nice touch, and I like that. So overall, Red Seas Under Red Skies, I didn't like the plot. I really loved the character development, and the world development was about the same. There's a few other key features that were, the biggest conflict in this book seemed between Jean and Locke. And it was handled very well. It felt like the biggest villain in this book was the relationship they had with each other and them trying to get along. And it didn't just pan out, smooth out right away. It had its ups and downs, as real relationships did. So Scott Lynch handled that well. It was a compelling storyline. I just wish that the actual main conflict had been half that compelling. I have to give this book a 7 out of 10. It was not as good as the first one. There was some real crucial problems with it, but overall, it's still tons of fun following these thieves around. And it's overall still handled very well. So a solid 7 out of 10. I really am recommending this series to people I know. I'm not sure what to review next. I may pick up Mistborn because, honestly, Brandon Sanderson videos get more views, and the series is pretty interesting. I picked it up once and wasn't a huge fan, but I'll give it another go. The only other book I'm considering is Ready Player One, because a lot of people are recommending that to me. And because that's not a series, I can kind of just knock it out of the way. I don't know. And as far as movies go, I'm going to have a video up within the next month dissecting what I think is the current condition of the horror genre. I love horror movies, and what's good and bad about current horror movies, because it's not all bad. So if you're interested in that, please look out for it. And as always, all that, YouTuber horror now stuff, please like and subscribe. And as always, have a great day. Peace.